So then, I made this video almost 3 months ago now, during the early days of my channel where, at a push, I was only getting 30 or 40 views a video. Very loyal views, don't worry, I'm not complaining, but I was only getting 30 or 40 views. However, over December, and more so from Christmas onwards, views seem to dramatically increase, especially for a video 3 months old, if you can call 250 views dramatic. But what's important is most of these views have been coming from the search function of YouTube, and it did get me wondering, where are Battlefield players at the moment? What Battlefield is most popular right now? And are there differences geographically? I'd like to see how they compare to each other over time. So I dug into the data from Google Trends to see where the community is at the moment, and there were actually some interesting results. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Before we get into it though, if you do enjoy, be sure to subscribe. We do everything Battlefield on this channel, so if you're a Battlefield fan, this could be the place for you. So I started off broad by looking at global trends across different Battlefield games for the year of 2020. Just so we understand the data shown, this chart simply represents search interest relative to the highest point on the chart given a certain region and time. So for example, here we're looking at the region across the globe and the time frame is the last 12 months. In this instance, within this dataset, Battlefield 5 was searched for the most between April the 12th and April the 18th relative to the other data points, and therefore the other points are expressed as a percentage of Battlefield 5's search volume in April. Now it sounds a bit confusing, but it's easy to understand when there's an example. So looking here between August the 16th and 22nd, you can see the number 20 is next to Battlefield 3. This simply means Battlefield 3 was searched for only at 20% of the rate as compared to the high of Battlefield 5 in April. So I hope that's easy enough to understand, but now we've got the boring terminology out the way. The results were somewhat predictable across the globe, with Battlefield 5 coming out on top with the highest search interest, followed by Battlefield 1, then 4, then 3. What is interesting to note was how well Battlefield 4 performed in terms of general interest around the game compared to some of the other games. In a lot of cases being neck and neck or more popular than Battlefield 1. And between October the 4th and October the 10th, Battlefield 4 was actually the most searched for Battlefield game. There were also some interesting peaks, with Battlefield 5 search volumes increasing on November the 15th, which is if you remember the release of Community Games. Battlefield 3 also saw a huge surge in interest during early December, in fact its highest search volume for the year due to hype around Venice Unleashed. In addition, Battlefield 4 sales within the United States were particularly interesting to look at. Battlefield 4 had more visits to Google Shopping than all other Battlefield games, bar Battlefield 1, which it was neck and neck with, exceeding Battlefield 5 sales, a more recent game. Quite a remarkable feat considering it was released back in 2013. And if you look at the most recent Google Shopping trends, although the data is not complete yet, hence the dotted line, Battlefield 4 in the yellow is on track to exceed the sales interest and therefore in all probability actual sales than any other Battlefield game over the coming weeks. This did prompt me to get a little bit more interested in the United States specifically, as I know many of you guys, my viewers, are from the US. In the US, even though sales interest for Battlefield 4 and 1 was higher in 2020 than Battlefield 5, Battlefield 5 still did come out on top when it came to overall search volume on YouTube. Yet Battlefield 1 still remains intensely popular across the United States, most so in Arkansas, Wyoming and Iowa, where Battlefield 1 YouTube searches take up almost 50% of all Battlefield game searches. There were even some standout states when it came to Battlefield 4, with Montana searching for Battlefield 4 on YouTube 45% of the time as a total of all Battlefield game searches. Moreover, Battlefield games came to Steam in June of 2020, and although Steam data only speaks for PC gamers and the data is not for the whole year, what we do have paints a similar picture. If you look on Steam, Battlefield 5 does seem to have more concurrent players, with an all-time higher peak and a higher 24-hour peak in players as of recording this video. Admittedly though, not much more than Battlefield 1. When it comes to percentage growth though, Battlefield 1 and 4 outperformed Battlefield 5, especially in the month of December, with Battlefield 4 player numbers growing by 93%, Battlefield 1 96%, and Battlefield 5 34%. So a growth across all games as of late. However, that is to be expected in the Christmas period for gaming in general, but a significantly larger increase for the two prior titles. If this trend continues, I wouldn't be surprised if Battlefield 1 begins to exceed Battlefield 5 player numbers in the coming months. Battlefield 4 does look like it's starting from a much lower base, so overtaking 1 or 5 in player numbers this year is improbable, but the data is suggesting it may be the fastest growing player base with the most interest in Battlefield 4 on Google Shopping this month. Although we have been focusing on the last year and forecasting for the year ahead, it is important to talk about the longer term trend of the games to put it all into perspective. And when we look at the chart expanding it to include data from 2011 to present, it paints a pretty grim picture for Battlefield games. It is important to note though there has been a general decline in searches for games, as you can see searches for Call of Duty, which is the red line, are also down over the years. This is merely due to the fact that Google and YouTube algorithms have become more effective at showing us what we want to see, hence a lesser need for us to search for things. This really only affects longer term data analysis though, with changes on a monthly basis being negligible. Yet what is interesting to see though is Battlefield's decline in relation to its major competitor Call of Duty. Back in 2011 and arguably up to the release of Battlefield 1, Battlefield was neck and neck with Call of Duty in terms of general interest around the two titles. However, as of 2020, interest in Call of Duty is on average 5 times greater than that of Battlefield. All the data we have analysed throughout this whole video exists in this tiny proportion of the graph here. So although yes, growth is looking good for Battlefield games as of late, the whole franchise right now is not in a good place when compared to Call of Duty. We have talked a lot about the US as it's the largest player base, but what was also interesting to see was searches for Battlefield as a proportion of different countries' total searches. In this instance, Battlefield games are actually far more popular in other countries than the US. Finland over the last 5 years has in fact shown the most interest in the Battlefield franchise as a proportion of all their searches, followed by Germany, Sweden, Norway and Hungary. In fact, there's real interest in the Battlefield games amongst many of the Nordic and Eastern European states. The United Kingdom comes in 7th place, while the United States lags behind in 12th. This is probably due to a number of different factors, such as DICE being based in Sweden. In addition, the United States, I would have thought, probably has a larger amount of options when it comes to deciding what to play, and therefore any game will take up a smaller proportion of search results in the US. There are some really interesting conclusions that can be drawn from this data, but it is important to note the limitations. For one, Google search or YouTube search doesn't give us actual sales numbers or player numbers, merely gauges overall interest when it comes to Battlefield. Reliable and accurate player numbers and sales numbers are really hard to get your hands on, so we've used this as a metric instead. Interest in the game we have then assumed correlates with player count and purchase numbers, which although probable can't be proven. We do have data that corroborates this assumption from the Steam player count website that does seem to support many of the conclusions drawn. However, even that data is limited to PC players and only exists from the month of June onwards. There are probably some limitations I haven't noticed, but these are the ones that came immediately to mind. What do you guys think? Do you think Battlefield 1 player numbers will exceed Battlefield 5 over the next year? Do you think Battlefield 4 will continue to be the fastest growing game? Do you think Battlefield 6 will change this, allowing Battlefield to once again compete with Call of Duty? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Having said that, thanks for watching everybody. If you did enjoy, please do subscribe. Have a great day and peace out.